Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of the Midweek Wire. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. Thank you for joining us. We had a live stream set up yesterday. Some of you might have seen that notice posted on our social media. We had technical difficulties with our service provider on the service of the stream. We've ironed out some of those issues, so we're back today with that same episode. We're going to be focusing on this story, which is the Gaza Flotilla. And we have a couple of great guests who are going to be able to enlighten us and give us information and some great perspective, as well as new updates on some of the people who are still in Israel, still in prison or still incarcerated in Israel, including the European Member of Parliament, Rima, Hassan. We've got some updates on that as well. Now, we'll bring on to the stage our guests. Some of you will know our guest, including this man, Freddie Ponton. He's an independent journalist at 21stcenturywire.com. Freddie, thank you for joining us on the Midweek Wire.
Yeah, it's good to be with you, Patrick. Thank you very much.
It's going to be a very heady discussion, and then we're also going to be joined by one of the co-organizers of the flotilla, as well as an international lawyer who works in the field of human rights. He is also currently, as we speak, preparing other missions of the same kind as the Gaza Freedom Flotilla. Dr. Frank Romano, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm pleased to be back with you.
Great to have you with us. And Frank, I'm just going to bring on stage here. This is your organization's X account. This is a good place to go, ladies and gentlemen, if you want more information on this. Freedom Flotilla Coalition on X.com. There'll be links, of course, in the show page, but just type this in, Gaza F Flotilla. Type that into the search bar on X and it'll bring you straight there. You'll find some updates here. And, you know, here was the crew. You can see the members of the crew, 12 members of the Madleen, and they have been, their vessel has been seized. They were all apprehended and detained by Israeli authorities. Some have been deported, others not yet, but perhaps we'll get some updates on there as well. And there's also a number of high-profile members of this as well. And also, we got some video footage here, which we'll show on screen. And this is from a cam that was mounted somewhere in the boat as Israeli forces were basically setting upon the crew there. And we'll see if we can bring that up. But it was...
Yet another war crime. Added to the long list of war crimes that Israel has been committing.
We are being intercepted right now. Way. Everyone here is safe. No one is wounded right now. It's very important that you know, no one is wounded until the time they boarded our boat. Okay? Please raise the alarm.
We want you to take down all cellular immediately.
Okay, they're asking us to take over the phone.
We're going to take our phones and be stored in the water right now. If I can manage to throw it in the water, I have to.
Okay, everyone, phones need to go. Phones need to go, please. Don't sit in the water. Put in the water.
Take this.
We are taking everything down. Guys.
So, Frank, I'm sure this is a scene you're well familiar with by now. Just kind of explain to us, first of all, thank you for your time in giving us a great update and information on this. So, this is a crew that you know well. These are people that you work with. These are your comrades, you could say, in arms on this mission. Just tell us about your thoughts about what happened and, you know, your sort of reaction to these scenes and everything else. Go ahead, Frank.
You're right, Patrick. I'm so close. I was on the boat from Augusta to Catania, and just 30 minutes before it was to sail, I was taken off the boat because two members of the press came and they said, we need two members of the press. So I gave up my place, but I trained with all those. These are my buddies, especially Thiago. So what happened here was the first thing that happened was all the Starlink, which is the way the Madleen was to communicate with the outside world. Wi-Fi was blocked. And then the Israeli soldiers sprayed some type of a white substance for some reason. I think it was to determine the white substance with their technology, if there were any other cameras or radios on the boat, but there's we don't know what the source of that white substance was. And then, when the soldiers were nearby, they were to get in, my buddies were to get in the circle there and put their life, because they put their life jackets on because they're not sure if they were going to be rammed. And they might not sure if they were not going to have to abandon ship. We've trained for all this. It turns out that the soldiers boarded and came in, and they were to raise their hands, because the reason with that is a specific reason, to show that they'd thrown their telephones overboard. They were actually ordered to do it, but they were going to do it anyway because the Israeli soldiers can misinterpret it as an arm and start shooting. That was they did in 210. The Mavi Marmara, in the same situation, a much larger boat and many more activists. 10 of the activists were actually killed, and there were many injuries. Here, they were trained to raise their hands about right after this video here. They were to all raise their hands when the soldiers came on board, and the soldiers were to stabilize, take over the ship, and one by one take into the boats that they were there alongside, and first of all, they arrest them, put handcuffs on them, all of them, and take them off the boat one by one. This is right before that happened.
Yeah, and we saw as well the people on the boat, Frank, all posted kind of like, if you will, messages after they went dark on communications, basically saying that they've been, if you see this message on social media, we've been taken by the Israeli IDF forces, and a number of those were some high-profile members of the crew, and I want to address this point as well. We'll bring back.
Certainly.
We'll bring back the images here, which we have from, or we'll take this footage off for the moment, but we'll bring up on stage the crew. Now,
Right.
I think it's incredible that you had Greta Thunberg, who is very well known internationally, and Rima Hassan, a European member of parliament,
Right.
and a number of other activists. Many happen to be from France as well. And the amount of attention, there was no press coverage at all before, but after this happened, it is really, the story has got a lot of traction, and it's triggered protests on the streets in some European cities. So I think, Frank, from that point of view, if the object was to raise awareness to the situation and to pressure European governments, I would say, despite the fact that, the suffering that some of these activists have endured at the hands of the Israelis, the mission has been somewhat of a success. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the overall objective of the Madleen was, just as you said, to show the light, to showcase, not going beyond the activists themselves, showcase the suffering of the Gazan people. But number one was to open up the corridor that's been shut off. Opening up the corridor, even if the boat doesn't get into Gaza, you need to pierce this blockade corridor, and there, just by being there, was a success. And we able to bring with Greta Thunberg and also the EC parliamentarian who has Palestinian roots, Rima, Hassan, was there with several people from different foreign countries. Risking big time to showcase, and what they constantly said, Patrick, all the time was, look, whatever happens here, the focus really is on the suffering of the Gazan people. Whatever we suffer, we've got to take this risk anyway to show the light as strong as we can, to show we've got lots to lose, but we're willing to do it, to make this movement so credible and make the contesting of the blockade and the treatment of the Palestinian people a credible contest. If we have, VIPs and a lot of people on this boat willing to give all of it up to showcase the struggle of the Palestinian people, again, to open up that corridor, which I'm in the boat now, one of the boats, and I'm not free to identify it in anything now. I'm back in Augusta working on a Freedom Flotilla that will follow through in this corridor, and hopefully have other boats, maybe 2 boats, maybe 3 boats, maybe 4 boats, maybe 50 boats, maybe 1,000 boats, hopefully will help pierce through that illegal blockade. That is the overall goal of this mission, really, the most important goal among others.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Frank. And then we'll bring on screen, this is a report up at 21st Century Wire, and this was filed by our Global Affairs department, of which Freddie Ponton is the associate editor of Global Affairs at 21st Century Wire. And I'm going to bring this up on stage, this report here. Now, we'll talk about Greta. I have a great video clip from Greta Thunberg when she was being, approached by the media as to, what her position is and so forth, and the conditions that she was. I was very impressed with her answers. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's bring this up on stage here, and this is up on stage. So, Rima Hassan has gotten a lot of, I would say, she's been noticed a lot more in France as a result of this, and so let's bring that up on stage. Israel piracy attack on the Madleen and Gaza aid ship triggers protests in France. And this is a report which Freddie had filed here. There she is, Rima Hassan. And quite amazingly, Freddie, Emmanuel Macron was forced to comment on this story. I was actually shocked that he actually did comment on it. That was something that surprised me. Just tell us about this story, Freddie, and about the reaction to, there's a lot of French crew on this mission, and they've represented themselves incredibly well online in what they posted. Your thoughts on this story, Freddie? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's still a developing story. As we're still expecting some of the French nationals to be deported back to France. So it's an ongoing story. I think today we have a lot of evidence and a lot of information that obviously forces us to really look deep into what happened with the Madeleines. I think Frank has outlined really eloquently the purpose of the missions and how it was conducted. I think on the other side, from a journalistic point of view, it's important to look at how the French government has reacted to this incident. We know for a fact that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, le Quai d'Orsay, was in touch with his Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jean-Noël Barrot, and someone that has basically have entertained a lot of conversation with the Israeli diplomatic counterparts, trying to express a need for keeping this really safe for the nationals and all the crew of the Madeleine. So there was a direct communications there. However, as you mentioned, after the incidents, what Greta Thunberg has characterized as a kidnapping in high seas, in international waters, the response from the French presidents are rather ironic, to say the least. Someone that has, over the past now 10, 12 months, has been reminding everyone that is really supporting the aid
est
support.
vigilante et aux côtés de tous ses ressortissants lorsqu'ils sont en danger. Donc nous avons évidemment passé tous les messages pour que la protection soit assurée à l'égard de nos ressortissants, que la protection consulaire à laquelle ils ont droit soit assurée et qu'au plus vite, dès qu'ils auront eux-mêmes signé les autorisations, ils puissent retrouver le sol français. Et les liens entre nos ministères des Affaires étrangères sont constants. Ensuite et surtout, la France appelle agrees that what happened is outrageous, to say the least, and there was a lot of protest in Paris, but also really I think about 200 rallies across France, protesting against and demanding the immediate release of what is described as hostages, since they were basically adopted against their will. So France is reacting, but the public is reacting. The problem that we're having is the lack of response
response
qu'on obtienne enfin ce cessez-le-feu, la libération des otages.
A government that should have acted really strongly and more importantly discussed the nature of the arrest. Madleen was taken basically search and seized in international waters, something that the president should have mentioned. And before mentioning anything else, this is international law. This is about the law of the sea, maritime law. This is about a lot of law, United Nations Convention. There's a lot of things that can be discussed with regards to the arrest and the seize and seizure. However, what's important for the leader of the countries, which nationals have been basically kidnapped, it is the first thing you should say that this is an act basically that is forbidden by international and by maritime law and by many conventions and treaty, and that is outrageous, and condemn this act to something that Macron has not did. It's just asked basically for the 6 French hostages to be released immediately, which does have no implication. It's not a form of diplomacy. It's just a statement. It doesn't really mean anything. And I think that's what the French public reacted to. They say, look, we are acting in response to the ICJ order, which is very clear that every member, every party of the genocide conventions that has a responsibility, and this responsibility is to do everything in its power to stop Israel from committing a genocide. So stopping the genocide is really what matters right now. And the aid relief, all these operations that are currently ongoing in the Gaza strips, of course, falls into that, And that's what there needs to be put under the scope to make sure that the financing of these operations are not politicized. This is really about humanitarian aid and not politics. And then on the other hand, making sure we apply the recommendation from the ICJ. Bearing in mind that, as we all know, you have 2 leaders, one former Minister of Defense and the current Prime Minister of Israel, which has been served with a warrant for their arrest by the ICC, the International Criminal Court. So these guys still travel around. When Netanyahu went to the state not so long ago, he went through Italy and France. Nobody has put the planes out there and trying to stop them. So there's a lot of hypocrisy going on. And I think that the public itself is starting to really get upset now, getting frustrated about the fact that we have to witness this crime against humanity every day on our cell phone, on our plates, on everything. We just look at it and there's absolutely nothing we can do until now. And I think that people have realized that it has come down to them, concerned citizens of the world, to start to act despite of their governments, reluctance, if you will, to act. Diplomacy has failed. It's quite clear. And that's what I'm looking at the moment, is the reaction from the French government is inadequate and is not sending a strong message to the Israeli government that there are going to be consequences if they keep on basically showing contempt for international law, and more importantly, taking liberties with French nationals, whether they're from France, Spain, Brazil. It doesn't matter. These are national, these are citizens, they are on a humanitarian peaceful missions. At no time they should have been basically arrested, basically thrown in jail. This is absolutely illegal incarceration, detention, and much more, and we'll talk about that later. The conditions of detentions are horrendous and absolutely appalling.
We will get to that. Frank, jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback onto what you said, Freddie. Let's look at the equivalent here and why this message from Macron is simply continue with impunity, Netanyahu. Let's just assume that Israel engaged in what it's always done. It will go into a boat like they did with the Mavi Marmara and accuse them of, well, they were resisting, but they were just pouring water over the soldiers and throwing sticks at them. But the soldiers in the Mavi Marmara 2010 were already shooting at the activists before this resistance started. So this could have happened on the Madleen. So let's just use a different scenario. The soldiers boarded and they planted arms, and they showed some false videos to show that there was some type of resistance, and they shot to and killed some of the activists on the Madleen. And then they would do like they always do and say, we were defending ourselves. We thought what we saw were arms. We're sorry. We looked and saw that they were not arms. It was just a telephone. and then you have two corpses, maybe two of them were French, returning to. So what would Macron say now? Please return the bodies. Please return the bodies to France on the same basis.
Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, please return the bodies to France and still not criticize Israeli actions. Israelis think, well, they can do this with the next ship. They can go in, they can plant arms, and they can injure or kill the activists. And Macron is simply going to say, return my citizens to the hospital, return the corpses, the dead bodies to France, please, and not criticize the underlying illegality of the attack, whether it be in arresting like they did on the Madleen, or whether it be killing or injuring the activists. It's the same logic. And it's the same weak statement by Macron that's simply telling Netanyahu, continue with impunity, whatever you're doing, we support, we just want the bodies back, or we just want the activists back to France. It would be the same thing. That's the wrong message. So the Israelis are thinking, well, the next boat's coming, we can up the ante. We can injure now. We can go ahead and have carte blanche and kill like we've done before in the Mavi Marmara. And Macron's going to say the same thing. Just return the bodies as soon as you can. Just return the injured French people to the hospital, and no critique of the illegality and the vicious attack by the Israeli naval forces against the innocent, unarmed activists. I can't hear you. I don't know why.
Sorry. And
Okay,
return them to the morgue, whatever the case may be. I mean, they don't care.
I hate to say it, it sounds cynical, but it's actually the same thing, because there's still no criticism of the source of this atrocious illegal act. I don't know what you think about that, Freddie, but I think let's take it to the next level. And now that I will be on the next boat, I'm starting to think about this seriously.
Yep.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with you, Frank. And we can even push the envelope a little bit further as well, because we would normally expect the European Parliament to issue a statement. Some have said that she was acting outside of a mandate. It is okay, but she's still a European member of the Parliament. That means she represents, she's an elected individual, and she represents the voice of many, many people in France. That cannot be disregarded. So I would have expected as well the European Parliament and the Foreign Affairs to issue a more stronger statements with regards to these incidents. But yes, it could have gone far worse. And I applaud the bravery of these 12 individuals that have joined the Madleen to do something that our government could have done easily, and that have refused to do. So it has fallen on to us, really, and to some brave individual. And of course, it was great for Greta to be here as well. I've seen many people criticizing Greta when it's really absolutely useless to do that. She's really on board. She's absolutely doing a great job at that. This is really politics on the ground. You know, this is not in an arena, in a house or a parliament or a Congress. This is actually defending what you believe on the ground, putting your life in danger so that you can be heard, and using your notoriety to do that. And I think we have to applaud that. There's no way. You're not an activist, or you have no ideas, or you're simply not involved in what's happening if you cannot support what she did on behalf of millions of people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to get Freddie on this subject of Rima here. Recent updates on that. We'll get some updates from Frank on this as well. But let me bring up on screen this recent report here. And this is 21stCenturyWire.com. French MEP Rima Hassan, imminent deportation after controversial solitary confinement in Israel, plus a lot more, in fact, that was done. And, you know, it's not easy going if you've been in detention there. And obviously they probably reserve the harshest treatment for someone like her, being of Palestinian heritage. They probably had to release Greta pretty quickly because her profile is big and in Europe, and that would create some serious problems politically for Israel. But, you know, what's interesting, and I'll get your comment, Freddie, and then Frank, that they tried to get them to sign what's called a deportation letter or something to confess that they were breaking the law, trying to illegally enter Israel, as if anybody would want to go to Israel who's on an aid flotilla. But that's beside the point. Freddie, just give me a quick summary of what's in this article, and then we'll get an update on Rima's situation with Frank. Go ahead, Fred.
Well, first of all, the article is really about talking about the illegal detentions of 4 French nationals and Brazilian nationals as well. From France, you had, as you say, member of the European Parliament, Rima Hassan. She's a French Palestinian citizen, but she holds a French passport. And then we have Yanis Mohamdi, the French journalist, Riva Salfetviad, an environmental activist, and Pascal Moreira is a marine engineer. All were basically put in detentions. First of all, they were moved, from what my understanding, they were moved to the Ben Gurion airport, and then from that moved to detention. As far as Rima Hassan is concerned, she was at the beginning in one prison and moved to a woman detention center. A horrible. I've read some various articles from the Israeli press depicting the conditions of detention in what is known as the Neve Tirza prison, which is not far from the Yevon prison. And she was thrown there on solitary confinement. And the same happened basically to Thiago, the Brazilian national, which was also sent into solitary confinement. So this is about having the 12 hostages. I call them hostages, really, because they are hostages. They were taken against their will. And they were forced basically to sign a document which will admit to have infringed and broken the immigration law of Israel by entering Israel illegally. This is what the document claimed, and wanted them to sign this before obviously processing them for deportation. And that's really a major problem, because as we've seen and we've discussed, and Frank has outlined as well, this adoption took place in internal waters, and they were taken against their will. So it's extremely hard for them to go and sign a document saying they illegally entered the soil of Israel when they were not, first of all, in the Israeli territorial water. They were about 185 kilometers away from that. This is the high sea. This is blue waters. The Israeli government has absolutely zero jurisdiction in these waters. So for them to ask their hostages basically to sign this document before releasing them is just simply scandalous. And again, no response on this matter from the French government. It's absolutely mind-boggling, to be honest with you. So that's what this article is about. It's talking about also what the kind of conditions under which they were detained. There was the Israeli forces and the prison were basically retaining food and water for 16 hours, which is against obviously many human rights conventions. And they were basically coerced in terms of admitting a crime that they have not committed. So, and then the article gives a lot of details about what happened, and it's actually an interview that was given to the French outlet Humanity, where basically the lawyer that represents, it's an organization in Israel that represented the hostages, that is the French activist, and he basically expressed a little bit during this interview all aspects of and conditions of the detention in Israel of the French national and also of Thiago. So great article, because you're going to find a lot of details there, and I think it gives you a quite clear understanding how little Israel is respecting human rights, the right of prison, and of course international law.
Yes, and that's up at 21stcenturywire.com. A lot of information on this and other stories related to this up at our website right now. Frank, what do we know right now about Rima, and is anybody else still being kept in the Israeli prison system, as it were? Go ahead.
Right. Well, just to complement what has just been said about it, there's a strategy that we have. Everything we do when we go in, We have a strategy, and the strategy was those that we want to get out right away, such as the journalists, because the journalists need out so they can tell the story, and then also the same with Greta, and also potentially with Rima. Except she decided to stay. That might have been also a calculation. She stays and contests these charges. But what they do is they give you a document, maybe a page, and they did that with me when I was in jail too, but it's in Hebrew. You can't read it. So, and they explain to you, and you can't trust anything they say. But in these conditions, you have to make a choice. They say, well, it simply says, I admit that I entered into Israel, even though it's really not subjectively Israel, but we entered Israel illegally, and we were breaking the a legal blockade. We admit to this crime, and we admit to being immediately deported. And they tell you that's what it said on there. And you sort of, they could also say that you tried to murder someone. They could say anything they want because no one could read Hebrew on this group. And so you're added. Some people are said, sign it right away. You can get out. And one of them, of course, was the journalist, the Omar, and the journalist from France. Even though he hung in there, I think the strategy was you want to have one journalist inside, Omar from Al Jazeera outside, and so those that signed were able to leave right away, and it was good because they can get the story out right away, because obviously they're not allowed to talk to anyone when they're inside, and even their own lawyers, maybe they have a call for 2 or 3 minutes. So now to answer your question about Rima, she is, the last thing I heard about an hour or two ago, she's on a bus on the way to the airport. She was in, and I'm adding on to what Freddie said, she was in solitary confinement, but it was a pretext. She had written Free Palestine on the wall in the regular cell she was in. So any excuse to dump on her, they threw her into solitary confinement on that basis. And Thiago, he's on a hunger strike. And due to the fact he's on a hunger strike, to punish him, because that does bring, that showcases what we're doing, and it continues to show what sacrifices we're ready to make for this cause. To punish him, they put him in solitary confinement. But both of them, I'm thankful to say, are on a bus, if not in the airport, if not in a plane already. At least, let's see, Rima's flight was supposed to be at 4:30 Paris time, which was about, I think, about an hour ago. I'm not sure if it's the same time. I'm at 5:30 Sicily time. And Thiago was supposed to be on a plane at 4 o'clock, 4:05 to Sao Paulo. So they're out of there. So and Yanis from France on a plane at 4:30. Yasmin, who's from Germany, who also has Arab and Palestinian and Kurdish roots, at 2 o'clock was supposed to already be in the plane and probably back to Germany, where she's from. Suwab from Turkey on a plane from 2. Mark from, who was the captain, the Netherlands, actually he's chartered to be on a plane June 16th. For some reason he's hanging in there to June 16th. He's got another 4 more days. Pascal, a French friend who's in the crew, is at 4:30. And so anyway, Reba, the only one that has no reservation, that no known date when he will return to France. He was the first mate. He was a captain for a while, and then first mate, taken over by Mark from France. There's no reservation yet. We don't know when he's going to leave, for a weird reason. So that's sort of the update on that procedure. And what happened was they went to trial. What was not said is these people that did not leave right away. Greta, again, was also encouraged to leave so he can tell the story and get out. We're afraid, because anything can happen in jail. You're really at their mercy. So I think basically to get her out and get the story out with the journalists, she was encouraged to go ahead and sign and get out. So in any case, getting back to this whole situation now, those that left contested, and when you contest the illegal, in your mind illegal, and we can get into the legalities of all this, arrest and imprisonment and prosecution and all that. The others contested it, and they went before one of the military tribunal, and they contested it with their lawyer, and it was the Israeli Detention Review Tribunal that they went before, which simply confirmed It confirmed, as most Israeli courts, what the government troops did. And then they had a month later a review of that decision on July 8th, which they could have stayed to contest it, but that was decided that they're not going to do that. They decided not to rot in prison, and probably just another confirmation. All they're going to do is spend another 4 weeks in this awful prison with terrible food and water and treatment. And they all decided that's time to leave now. So that's where they are right now.
And you mentioned Greta Thunberg, Frank.
Yes.
Thanks for that.
Yes.
Thank you for that update. We're relieved to hear that Rima and Tiago are en route, hopefully.
If it's confirmed, because at that time we had a date and a time from the lawyer, but we didn't see any plane tickets. So the update, assuming that the Israeli government is faithful to the date that they gave, the time and day they gave for their release. Oh, I'm sorry, Pascal is, I told Pascal, the French member of the crew, will be leaving on the 13th, so a day later. He's not, and that would be 4:30. The rest, and Yanis, I think I also alluded to it, was today. No, it's tomorrow. Yanis, the French journalist, will be tomorrow along with Pascal, but everyone else is either on a plane or on the way out, except for Reva again, the first mate, Frenchman, and there's absolutely no time and date of his departure yet.
Okay, and then again, people, pay attention up at X to the Gaza Freedom Flotilla Coalition, their X account. There'll be some updates up there, as well as the website, which will show from the Gaza Flotilla website, official website, will show at the end as well. And you mentioned earlier, Frank, Greta Thunberg. And it is very important that some journalists and people like her obviously getting out to speak to the press immediately after. I thought that was quite powerful. This interview in particular has gone viral. And, there's a lot of people sniping from the sidelines at Greta over this. And quite frankly, quite a few people who are allegedly on our side of this issue. And I just find that to be baffling. Because, and they're saying, well, this girl, that girl. I said, she's not a girl anymore. She's a 22-year-old young woman. And she really has brought her talent for communication. And I'm so impressed with her ability to handle the media that are quite aggressive. And she's able to handle them. And she keeps her head. She's very clear in her answers and very humble and shows a lot of humility. And there's a lot of character. Very good character there that I'm so impressed with her, as a spokesperson for human rights in general on this issue. She has, I personally might disagree with her on some of the climate campaigning, but, I really couldn't care less because it's not related to this at all. I am just so happy that she is, she's representing this issue because she does it so well. Now, here's this clip, which has really gone viral. We'll listen to, I'll pause it at certain points to get your reactions, Frank and Fred as well. But here she is.
And to break that siege and open up a humanitarian corridor.
Could I ask you, did you said you had no contact at all with any of your other colleagues from the boat when you were detained? Is that what you said?
No, that's not what I said. I was just mainly speaking. I don't really know what's going on because
you don't know what's going on with the others.
Are you worried about?
I wasn't able to say goodbye.
Are you worried about the others, that they might be detained for
Yeah, I'm very worried about them. We heard many different messages pointing towards that they would not make it easy. And there were troubles with being able to see lawyers. So I'm very much calling for their immediate release and calling for everyone who can to mobilize to their governments and other ways to demand their immediate release. And of course to demand not only humanitarian aid being let into Gaza, but also a ceasefire, but most importantly an end to the occupation and an end to the systemic oppression and violence that Palestinians are facing on an everyday basis.
Are you disappointed you didn't manage to break the blockade?
I don't know if disappointed is the right word. This is a continued violation of international law and war crimes that Israel are systematically committing against Palestinians by not letting aid come in by starving people and mass slaughtering in every possible way.
Frank, I like the fact that she's not pulling any punches on the issue, and there's so few people that will do that, but are able to do that and pull it off without anybody coming after them because of her. It's because of her profile. She has that profile, and she's got that skill with the media. And to me, she's a formidable. She's a formidable, problem for the establishment. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, let's keep it in context. She has just gone through a very intense, stressful moment. And I can relate to it. The moment when I was in jail and so forth, I was first in jail. It wasn't based upon the flotilla. It was my representation of the Bedouins in Al-Akma. But I ended up in the same jail, the same stress and food deprivation, sleep deprivation as she commented on. And yet she comes off that plane, and I can guarantee for the last 48 hours, she's maybe had 3 hours of sleep. And she's able to keep her cool. And keep her, make what she says succinct and provocative without going overboard, and listening to the questions and answering the questions. That's amazing. And she got right to the point, right to the core of the problem without hemming and hawing.
Yeah, Freddie, you want to jump in there?
Is someone that has matured over the years, and her experience is shining through right now. She's handling it despite what she's gone through. Sleep deprivation, food retention. It's the typical techniques Israel is utilizing for coercing people in admitting or signing any documents. Right. But she didn't accept it. And she said it. I love it when she says, why would I do that? I didn't enter this country illegally. Why would I sign anything? So this is a brave young woman, and we should give her all the credit that she's due. She stayed composed, and I think she has a great future against her. And I think that the pro-Palestinian movement, if you will, which is a humanitarian before anything, is a peace movement. It's not about politics. It's about humans, humanity. This is about defending what is right, human rights, about people having access to decent food, waters, and not being treated like some kind of cattle. This is just absolutely disgusting what we are saying. And despite all that, you need to leave all your differences, all your emotions at the door to be able to entertain a conversation at the Orly airport in France, to be able to communicate a message, that is calm and that is reassuring. And they say, this is what happened. We're here. We're going to evaluate. We're going to go back into what happened. And, hopefully she'll be able to reunite with her colleagues, because this is a team now. And these people are obviously extremely close to each other, because such events make you closer, friends for life, And I think, Frank, you've had the same. You've been around these people. This is like a second family to you as well.
And if I can just interject, Patrick, Greta was with us in Malta, ready to go on the boat with us. That was bombed. We were all ready to go 6 hours later. So she could have just gone home and said, okay, I've done my Palestinian thing and I'm with it, but now I'm moving on to other things. Instead, she was called back to the Madleen, and this time to Augusta in Sicily, and continued the struggle with us, knowing full well the reality is we had to prepare for 4 scenarios. One of them was the bureaucratic struggle, the war, getting out of port, and the Zionists do all they can to keep us there, or interception, or actually being attacked and bombed and we have to abandon ship, and injuries or deaths, or we get into Gaza. All those 4 scenarios we had to train for. She was willing to go back, knowing full well that the Madleen could have been attacked just like the Conscience, because they neutralized the Conscience with a blow. At least there's no proof that it was Israel, but all evidence points to Israel having neutralized the Conscience. They could have done the same thing for Madleen, and I admire her courage to suck it up, go back to Augusta, knowing what the risks are, feeling with us, not in an arrogant way, in a solidarity way, as another human being, trying to showcase the struggle of the Palestinian people together, taking the necessary risks.
And we'll just play a little bit of the clip continuing going forward. Thank you for that, Frank. Let's listen to a little bit more here.
during a live streamed, full-blown genocide that the world is watching.
How do you feel about the European governments and their position and what they're doing and not doing?
Yeah, both. In our case, their silence was complicity with Israel's illegal actions, but most importantly, their complicity in the genocide that's going on now by sending aid, by sending military and financial support to Israel. They are also part of the killings of Palestinians.
There's a conference coming up at the UN. France is thinking of recognizing the state of Palestine.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's the very, very bare minimum. Of course, welcome, but we need so much more than that. When there's even a risk of genocide happening, we have a duty to prevent that from happening. And right now we are so far gone beyond that stage. It is. There are no words to describe the betrayal that is happening every day by our own governments.
You were made the choice. You were offered the choice to return straight away, or for leaving Israel. Can you tell us? You chose to leave Israel straight away. We've been told that people were forced to sign papers in which they recognized that they'd entered the country illegally. Did that happen for you?
I did not recognize that I entered the country illegally. I made it very clear in my testimony that we were kidnapped on international waters and brought there against our own will into Israel.
What did Israeli authorities say to you? What did Israeli authorities say were the reasons for your detention and arrest?
Many different things.
Did you have to sign any papers before leaving Israel?
Well, depends on what you're referring to.
There were talks about some of your colleagues that had to sign papers that they would not return to Israel for 100 years.
Yeah, I did not sign that. Why would I?
So that's another thing, is because she was released early, Frank. Some people were saying, "Oh, she did," and then they heard about this paper that you had to sign to admit your guilt. There were immediately accusations from the peanut gallery that somehow she didn't. She signed it and got early release because of that. Of course, that was completely false. She didn't sign any such papers, as she's shown here. And then, and I think you bring up an important point. And by the way, when she was asked about Palestinian statehood, and that was very impressive how she answered that. She basically said, at the bare minimum, that's all that is. It needs so much more than that now. It's gone past that stage. Just the fact that she grasps the wider political and geopolitical sort of context, Frank, to me is I'm very happy to hear her say that. And, when she says that stuff, people that watch her, follow her, admire her, they also listen to what she's saying and how they're forming their arguments. When you have someone like this answering those questions like that, I think it's hugely important. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I'm like Freddie. I'm a French citizen, and I can just see many people saying, "Oh, this is great. And it's great for France. We are now recognizing the state of Palestine." And Greta, in a more sober way of saying, we've already addressed this so many times, and Greta did it in such a succinct way. How you're now what is the word? You are now congratulating each other for recognizing the state of Palestine on one side of your mouth. On the other side, you're continuing to send arms and money to Israel to enable the genocide. And she brought that in a succinct way. So it's not time to congratulate yourself. This is not, and I will take it even another step further. It's not even the minimum. It's a given by all standards, by the definition of the General Assembly of the United Nations that have voted observer state status, the UNESCO, and the waving of the ILO, the Palestinian flag before the ILO. These are all indications of Palestinian statehood. It's even no big deal. What's now to do, whether countries recognize the state of Palestine, fine. That's fine, but the international community and by law, Palestine is a state. Let's get beyond this and not make such a big deal of something that's already done. Now what you need to do is address the real complicity and what she did say. And in a criminal standard, let's say that someone drives a car with his friend, and they're going to hold up a deli. And there's no intention to kill, but all of a sudden somebody dies. The cashier pulls out a gun and his friend kills him and takes the money and runs. There was no intent to kill. This is a felony murder rule. And under US standards anyway, and probably French standards, the guy who drove the car can also be executed or condemned for first-degree murder as an accomplice. And people tend to separate that, say, well, my government's doing that. I'm paying them money and I don't have control over it. Yes, you do. Every single person that doesn't contest what their government's doing in their name is an accomplice. Criminally, if not spiritually, in the next life, they are going to pay for these crimes as direct accomplices. And I think Greta was referring to this in perhaps a more subtle way, and I'm less subtle about it.
Freddie, jump in there, Fred.
Yeah, no, Frank is he nailed it. I mean, that is the Frenchman in him, definitely. Look, there is no, if you don't say anything after watching, 20 months plus, of genociding children's, women's, young men, young women, doesn't matter, all that under the name of, Israel has the right to defend itself. You must be past that now with the amount of lies that we've been served by this administration. It is clearly that Israel, as far as I'm concerned, and I think millions of French people are exactly in the same line, that Israel is not the first democracy in the Middle East. It is certainly not a democracy at all. This is a rogue state that needs to be cancelled. And as far as I'm concerned, when you see their absolutely nonchalance with regards to any humanitarian activities from this absolutely, beyond belief, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's operation, which is nothing more than an intel operation conducted in between Mossad and CIA. This is nothing else than that, with, shady financing in Switzerland and Delaware. Then from what we understand now, that this has nothing to do with helping people. Israel is not interested in helping or feeding Palestinians. Quite the opposite. They allow them to die not slowly, as quickly as possible. And that is the reason why they're shooting them when these guys are trying to get access to aid relief package and so on. And the entire process, which we discussed, you and I, over and over, is just simply beyond what humanitarian relief should be. There are procedures, there are measures that need to be in place. You don't have people and millions of people coming to you to get food. It's known to be a disaster. You parcel it, you grid it out, and then you go to the people with the support of the local community. Everything that should be done is done in a wrong way, in the opposite way, for the only and single reason. It's because it's going to allow the IDF to get rid of more Palestinians and to create more mayhem and chaos in the strip. And then, in addition to that, when we saw that Israel is now hiring some gangsters inside the strip, to act as a kind of a counterbalance to Hamas, to trying to put the blame on Hamas for the death and the of course, the aid relief that has been stolen from trucks, then you have a situations that clearly indicate, not only to the ICC, but to the ongoing case at the ICJ, that this is a genocide, because the intention is not about the number of people that are dying and that have died in this conflict. This is really about the intent. And as someone actually very interesting that I said it, although I don't agree with a lot of things that he said, but for once he was quite smart about it, and that is Luis Moreno Campo, the former chief prosecutor at the ICC, and he declared it very clearly, and he actually broke it down in a video you can find on my Twitter account. And he says the siege of Gaza is a genocide. And what he's trying to say here is that it's really important to understand that to break the siege on Gaza, to break the blockade on Gaza, you need to address the siege, because the siege is the genocide, because it does not allow the Palestinian people to come out, to basically take their future in their own hand, to have a deliberate right to self-determination. This they've been deprived of, not only of food and waters, but also the right to self-determination. And that's what the siege accomplished, and it falls into the blockade. So that's very important, because the ICJ will likely respond to that.
And guys, just take a look. I mean, Freddie was talking about this debacle, which I've done a great job bringing that to the attention of a lot of people in the last couple of weeks. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation creating these bottlenecks for aid and seeing scenes like this. I mean, Frank, these barbed wire gauntlets. I mean, how else can you describe this as just World War II level, pogrom level stuff? And how can anybody justify this? Or, who's responsible for this scene? That's what you have to ask yourself. The President of the United States rode in on this wave of, we've got a ceasefire in Gaza. And here we are 4 months later, and now we've got this. It's not looking good. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, it's the purpose behind this this food delivery system that was set up by the U.S. and Israel and other allies was clearly to do what you see. It wasn't. It was to take away the 400 centers of distribution by UNRWA and other multinational humanitarian bodies and not give them credit for it, give us credit for it. But the underlying strategy was really to mass these people together in certain places and make them travel distances to go to these places, get them under control. We know who they are. You know they're going to come out of hiding or whatever because they need the food. And now we're going to be able to control these people. And then whenever we need to even set up barriers, that could be the next step. Now that we got them in these places, now let's just push them there and keep them there. We'll dangle the carrot and the stick as the food. Do we keep them under control? And I think and the results they were predicting. The results are going to mass people together in these terrible, unacceptable conditions. Look at them; they're crawling over each other because they're starving, and the food, and they're trying to get food for the kids and stuff. And it's exactly the objective is to mass them together, control them, make them go distances. And during those distances, some people are going to die because they can't make it. And be totally under control. The idea is to completely control Gaza, get all these people out of their tents under hiding, under control, so they can focus on Hamas. And so that Hamas can't be there, but that they can also filter the people they give food to see if it's Hamas is not involved. But that to me is simply a second priority. The main thing is to control, mass people together into these inhuman Bantustan-like things like reservations, and the next step is to maybe put barriers around, finding ways of carting them away, of controlling the citizens and enhancing their starving, because a lot of people can't get there the way they have it set up. And those distribution places, 400 of them were all over Gaza, reaching the north and the south. And now these places are centered in some areas, I think more in the south, if I can't remember. And that's exactly what they want. So it's a strategy. It's not a humanitarian effort at all. It's not their goal. The United States is just as complicit in this genocide. And it's turned into an extermination, unfortunately.
Yeah, and this, not to forget, we'll bring up on the screen here what you're talking about, Frank. Though clearly a strategy, and Freddie and I pointed this out on our broadcast last week, to push people to the south, herd them into, more sort of, quote, safe zones that are looking more like kill zones, quite frankly. And we're not exaggerating here. And then setting up a like you said, Frank, a Bantustan stroke concentration type system, create more bottlenecks, to create the problem, to create what Israel does very well, which is create facts on the ground that suit whatever their objectives are. And if the objectives are to empty out Gaza, the United States and Israel are basically well on their way to trying to make that happen. And so here's a map here about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Again, this has been very much exposed in the last couple of weeks. It doesn't make the situation any better, of course, but that's the point. And I think this is a point that's lost on a lot of people, Frank, is that the point of the Freedom Flotilla isn't the amount of aid you can deliver in a 60-foot sailboat into the Gaza Strip. That is not the point. The point is that you're doing something. And by doing something, by showing that 12 people will risk their life to bring a meager amount of aid into a place like Gaza, that'll trip the wire in people's brains saying, what are we doing? What are our governments doing? Look at these people. They're putting it all on the line for the Palestinians to bring starving population food and aid. That's the point of this. And that's why I really have a problem with a lot of the sniping and I think unwarranted criticism that has come towards a lot of the activists, and including
this was a mission
including Greta herself. And as you said, Frank, she was on the first flotilla that was bombed. Okay, the one before the Mare Marvina, people died. People were assassinated by the IDF. This is not a risk-free endeavor. Okay, so all of the people who have taken part in this are sacrificing and risking different things, personally, family-wise, professionally, politically. They could get debanked. Who knows? The possibilities are endless. So, Greta is not shying away from that. And she's mobilized hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that weren't on this issue before. That to me is massive. So to the people criticizing her, how many new people have you mobilized to this issue? Sniping on X and social media. I'm going to say you haven't mobilized any new people, and you should be supporting Greta, Rima, Hassan, all of these people, Tiago. I think these are exemplary individuals, exemplary. And I've been in this issue. I've been supporting this cause for 25 years. I've been very deeply involved in it. And this is one of the best efforts I've ever seen in 25 years that I've been involved in following this issue so closely. And I'm so impressed. And, and the other criticism, Frank, is that, and Freddie, is they said, no, it's not doing anything to go to Gaza by sea. First of all, have you ever taken a boat across the Med? Because it is not a small undertaking, okay? Secondly, they said, why don't they march to Rafah? I'm like, there's already 10,000 people doing that this week. So it's not a legitimate argument. And they're saying, they're making it all about, Greta's making it all about her and not the Palestinian suffering. I disagree. How would you respond to that type of an accusation, Frank? Go ahead.
Clearly, it's just a way to find fault where there is no fault. First of all, this needs to be brought to the surface. I don't people understand to prepare for these trips. I know Greta came in later on, but she had to do some very tough training to get to these trips. And I'll tell you something, we were on that boat from Augusta to Catania for 3 hours. And it was such a choppy sea, we all got sick. We all got sick more than once. When we got to Catania, a lot of things, and we're here in preparation for this. And then to go across the Mediterranean, I'm sure they ran into tough seas. It's different than the Pacific, the Atlantic. It's very choppy, and it's very movementing, and it can make you extremely sick. That's why they had a doctor on board as well. It's a very tough voyage to take. And this is how they try to spin it, right, Patrick and Freddie? They say, well, this is a selfie boat, and they're all in it to kind of shine a light on themselves. Well, yes, the sailboat probably was owned. I think it was bought in Croatia by a well-to-do person, and they just went out and drank champagne and stuff. It's that type of a boat. But inside is a whole new matter. It was just a boat that was ready. They wanted to connect up with another boat, the Handela, but the Handela wasn't ready, and go together with other boats. But it happened to be the only boat that's ready now. And the Conscience, as we know, is out of order, was neutralized and bombed in Malta. That was the only boat available, and it was a tight fit. And it was very tough training to get there, and very, very disciplined what we did, and we trained on the boat, and I'm sure they did also when they left Catania on the way to Gaza. It's no small feat to even be on board that. And then, as you alluded to, Patrick, it makes it very credible. It makes the Palestinian cause even more credible for two reasons. That here, these people that have lives, it's not like that we can just put people like homeless on the boat and they're just looking for a place to stay. Those are human beings that are just as credible, just as valuable as a Greta and a Rima and all the others. But these people, have a whole lot to lose, perhaps more so than others. But they're all professional people, and they're still taking this chance. What does that mean? That means if they're trying to make this credible, there might be people to say, hey, like you said, what about us? But not only that, is maybe they'll start believing in the Palestinian cause if these people that are willing to risk it all, that have a lot to lose, are willing to do it. Number two, think the idea of having people like Greta on board as well, who is really in climate change issues. We got a lot of climate change issue people now on board for Palestine, and because of Greta, a lot of Palestinian people, pro-Palestinian demonstrators, more into the climate, because they are fused issues. There's huge climatic violations to the climate and to the natural resources in Gaza and the West Bank. They are connected. They're connected because the powers that be, the evil that is kind of taken over the world now, the big businesses that are trying to sap the world of its resources just to make money and leave the next generation without anything that Greta and others have confronted. We are fusing the struggle. And Thiago, and I'll probably do it in July if we've successfully gone to Gaza and so forth, and we have a little bit of a break, because Thiago also organizes trips to Cuba and trying to converge the Cuban music movement, of liberation, because they're really thrust into the ground by the powers that be, because they contest and they support Palestine, and fuse the Palestinian struggle with the Cuban struggle and make it a world struggle. We've got to do it to make it powerful, because the powers that be are extremely powerful and taking over the world, and will pull back on their power by bringing forth these efforts. Even though it seems small, they're powerful efforts, and we keep going with the boats, and we keep going with fusing these revolutionary places that are combating against the powers that be, that are behind Israel and Palestine, such as those that are smashing Cuba into the ground, and converge these movements. And Thiago does it, and I may go, and he does it in July. I may go to July for a 10-day visit, because one day in Cuba we have a Palestine Day. And so bringing these movements together, make it powerful. Maybe we can pull back from these evil forces that are controlling the world today, God willing.
Okay, yeah, and Freddie, Frank mentioned, the environmental damage in Gaza. I mean, I saw whole farms. You've seen the aerial shots of the olive farms. They're gone. All of them, all of the agriculture, everything. It's been absolutely eviscerated. Probably, who knows, toxically poisoned the soil for, generations. That's kind of like what the Trump administration has been presiding over for the last going on 5 months now. And it's that's also a part of it, that making it unlivable from a health and environmental point of view, and people not able to grow their own food as well, or access to clean water, fundamental issues are now basically it was already bad before October 7th, Freddie, and now things are on another level. This is something I think as well. I think Frank makes a good point that people that are interested and moved by and passionate about environmental issues, there's something here for them as well. Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a common denominators in between all genocides and ethnic cleansing operation is to really take on not only the human, but also to take on anything that provides subsistence to any form of livelihood. So if you have communities that depends on certain agricultures, depends on waters and good waters, not polluted waters, all that is taken and is part of ethnic cleansing. It's really a concept that comes in many forms. It's not just an armed conflict. It's not about just killing people. It's the way you do it. And if it means that people livelihood, agriculture's food, water is going to be polluted in order to achieve the strategic goal, then that's what they do. And that's exactly what we saw in Israel. We saw that in other places in Africa as well. I've been over the conflict in Sudan, spent I think 3 years in Sudan, so quite a bit of time. Nyala, Al-Fasher, all these places. I've seen what the UN can do. It's magic. money do talk, because they are, at the time, was one of the biggest budget in Sudan for humanitarian relief. And when you see UNAMIS and WFP, the work they've done, thousands of agencies involved, they have a know-how that nobody has on the planet. Let's put it that way. And that is what Israel is really threatened about. They're threatened about this knowledge, this expertise. That's why they attacked the UN. And the reason why is because what the Madleens and all this Freedom Flotilla has achieved is to really exacerbate the irrelevance of the United States and exacerbate the overuse of veto power at the United Nations Security Council, which is the reason why we found ourselves in this mess in the first place. Because if the UN Security Council and the United States will allow an appropriate mandate, right, to be provided to all these agencies to make sure that we can protect the Palestinians, that the food is delivered unhindered, then all that will be just of the past. We would not have a risk of famine. We would not have people shooting guns at people trying to collect their food and their parcels. All that is because someone is exercising his power and exercising his veto power at the UNSC, and that is the United States, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, well said, Freddie, well said. And just to underline this issue here, Rima Hassan has created a dilemma for the European Union, because at some point they're going to have to address this situation, plus the embarrassment and the bad attention that Israel's brought to Europe by treating an MEP in this way. There's no way around this. It's bad press for Israel. They won't be able to claw it back. It's not anything they're going to be able to really fix. They're not, they can't pay her off, or, whatever. Her reputation is really, I think, risen because of her involvement in this, and that makes her a more powerful spokesperson for the issue at the end of the day. And then just before we're gonna wrap it up in just a few minutes, but very briefly, Freddie, you flagged up a couple of important legal points we want to address. I want to get Frank's opinion on that, but if we can do this in just a couple of minutes, because we're going to keep an eye on the time. But here it is, Freddie. Go ahead and tell us what we're looking at here.
Yes, of course, Patrick. There's different way to look at the legal framework. I'm not a lawyer, first of all, so I don't want to give any legal advice, and I want to make sure that that's my disclaimer here. But we can all read, we can analyze, and we can look at various aspects of this particular incident that happened in international waters. And it's very important because the legal framework to address an incident like the Madleen, where basically a vessel has been boarded, people have been searched, the vessel has been seized, and these people have been basically brought onshore to Israel. The vessel has been brought to Ashdod, port of Israel. All that falls into a legal framework. And the first one, it's obviously where the incident took place, and that is 185 kilometers away from territorial waters, which mean blue waters, international sea, high sea. There is two articles, in my views, that are very important, because if a coastal state wants to send its navy, its military to board basically a vessel, it's going to need to comply with Article 110 of the Law of the Sea Convention. Right, which is pretty much similar to what you will find in the High Sea Convention 1958, Article 2022. They're almost verbatim if you look at them. But what's important is that if you board a vessel without actually, having enough evidence that the ship is involved in some form of piracy or some form of slavery, involved in activities that involve slaveries and human abuse, human trafficking, or illegal broadcasting, whether it's high-frequency radio or simply mass broadcasting on the shore of a state, then there is a claim, if you will, that just only give the right for coastal states to come and investigate, check the document, making sure of the identity of the boat, making sure the flag is right, the document corresponds to the flag, and so on and so forth. What we are seeing here is completely different, because this boat is flagged with a UK flag, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah.
what we are saying is that this is not a secret to anyone what this boat is doing. It is not involved in human trafficking. It is not involved in slavery. It is not involved in slave trade, and it's certainly not involved in illegal broadcasting. So therefore, on international water, if you have not this kind of, strong evidence that a crime is being committed, you're not allowed to board a vessel that is owned by a private person or private entities. And that is where the problem I'm really kind of submitting to the legal expert in these matters are saying, hang on a second here. Anyone now can come on board of your ship without any evidence of you committing a crime. They can take your boat. They can literally take you off your boat and put you literally in a detention center in their countries. Is that legal? That is what I'm trying to say here. And I think Article 110 of LSOC and, of course, the IC Convention 1958, Article 22's approach these matters and discuss the right of visit. And the right of visit is a right to everyone. And of course, this article provide provisions for doing it in the right way. And obviously, from what I can see, Israel didn't actually look into that or even ignore it completely, in my views.
Yeah, Frank, do you have any input on this?
Yes, Article 51 of the UN Charter. Let's start from the beginning. Very quickly, because I know we don't have much time. A state can do this in its own sovereign waters. It can control a boat. It can, for whatever purposes, conforming to its own laws, enter a boat and arrest all the people, attack the boat, and so forth. These are international waters, but it has the right in international waters, just based upon what you said, to board the boat, to arrest the people in international waters outside of its sovereign territory, in the event that there's evidence that there's piracy and all the things you've listed. But the bottom line for this, Madleen, is after it gets out of international waters, what was its intention? And under Israeli law, they said it was intending to pierce through a valid legal blockade. The blockade has been referred to as invalid by many sources, in particular the International Court of Justice. It said, by all means, Israel, ordering Israel to not impede the entry of humanitarian things like food, water. It is supposed to not impede this. Therefore, under a recent International Court of Justice, it's a temporary measure called temporary measure. The decision, it was a genocide case that South Africa brought. That hasn't been decided yet, but temporary measures have been ordered. And therefore, the boat, is Israel conforming to that? No. Then the Madleen boat taking law into its own hands to the extent that it's legal to do this, bringing aid according to the court, saying this is our responsibility. And of course, Albanese, the UN reporter and on Middle East, on the Palestinian affairs, said this, according to the International Court of Justice, is our obligation. So not only do we think it's the right thing, it's our obligation to overcome what Israel's not doing and flying in the face of international law and the International Court of Justice court order is to bring humanitarian aid the best we can. And since it's the land, sources like Rafah Gate and Kerem Shalom are virtually closed, and they have this phony type of distribution center that we've talked about is not working, then we do all we can. So the strategy of the Freedom Flotilla in cahoots with the March to Gaza movement is it's a military strategy in a way. What do you do with the enemy? You surround the enemy by land and by sea, and you attack and you attack and you attack, and you have international law legitimacy. But finally, what I'm saying is Israel, for many years, has violated international law and doesn't care about international law, just like the United States, only if it serves their purpose. So, on the other hand, we have to be realistic. They violated it severely here, and we need a decision by the court of the International Court of Justice that the genocide is committed, and then ICC committed, and the ICC is saying Netanyahu, on one of the grounds that he got the arrest warrant, is he's weaponizing starvation. That's illegal, and there's enough evidence to show it. So arrest warrant pending a final decision. And so at the end of the day is we, the individuals, as we've decided, we're going to have to take this into our own hands. There's no recognition of international law. We're to wait around for these decisions. That's not going to happen. That'll happen in the future. And then Israel is not going to comply with it. Let's take the law in our own hands and do what's right in accordance with the international law. And that's exactly what the flotilla is trying to do.
Yeah, well said, Fred. Great explanation, really putting things into proper perspective of especially the mission of the Madleen. It's very important that people understand that context, that perspective, because then the picture makes a lot more sense, and you can see how important and more than symbolic, you are testing the boundaries of international system of law, politics, geopolitics, international relations. That small little effort, that humble little effort, 60-foot sailboat has done a lot, as have the people on it, and they deserve our respect and absolute gratitude and support for this effort, and for your team as well, Frank, and all the things that you are all doing. And as you mentioned, the march to Rafah, okay, that's underway. Huge pushback by the Egyptian government. We have been in touch with people, including one of our reporters who's on that march as well, and they're cracking down heavy. The Egyptian government is. That's unfortunate, but that's just the way things are. So there's nothing that can really be done there, but I'll bring that statement very briefly up on to the screen now so people can see. And again, a great source for us online is Suppressed News, who's in Egypt, and he's doing great work keeping people informed. And they're basically saying, the Egyptian government saying, deporting a lot of French nationals for some reason, the European nationals, because they haven't gone through the embassies in the host countries before coming for this, but they actually did. They liaised with this. This is a very well-organized event, but what's happened is there's political pressure that's been put to bear on Egyptian authorities, probably from Israel and the United States, to basically somehow put the kibosh on this, which is about expecting 7,000 people to march, not all the way from Cairo, but I think at a point, a rallying point in the Sinai Desert to the Rafah border crossing, and they're absolutely freaking out, the Egyptian authorities. There's also a huge convoy coming from the Maghreb, okay, from Morocco, Libya, Algeria, Tunisia. Massive amount of vehicles that have crossed into Egypt, heading to Rafah. So, I mean, that's kind of what you're talking about, Frank. This is really awoken, and you know, you have to give a lot of credit to the Madleen for providing that spark that everybody has seen internationally, and I think that's what you wanted. I think from that effort, that's really what you wanted. That's the most you could ever ask for, and I think that's happened here. And go to the Freedom Flotilla Coalition on X, and that's how you can sort of get involved. There's a link to their website there, which is freedomflotilla.org. Freedomflotilla.org. Again, all accessible here. Just go on to X, formerly known as Twitter, and you can get all the links, plus all the updates, plus video messages from people on the crew, testimonies. It's all here. Get involved, support this effort and things like it. This is a very important time right now. Just before we break, 1 minute, I'll give you each of you a minute for your final thoughts. We're going to have to exit the broadcast, but go ahead, Freddie Ponton, go ahead.
Well, thanks, Patrick. I think we've had a chance today to break down a couple of important points, you know, with regards to how we should look at this, you know, how we should look at our governments, how we should appreciate, you know, efforts by individuals like the crew of the Madleens and others, as you've just mentioned, you know, with the global march to Gaza and the Samud convoy from North Africa. All that are basically a ball. It's snowballing. What the Madleen has done is basically incite people say, hey, we need to do something. It's fallen down to us to do something. Our governments have let us down, and more importantly, they're on the Palestinian people. It doesn't matter how much food, how much money they've spent. If that food cannot enter the Gaza Strip, it's worth zero. Right now, we have a complete population, 2 million plus that are basically in danger of famine, according to the United Nations. And if our governments is not going to do something about it, if we cannot provide security for this population that is facing genocide, then we are not better than Israel. That is for us to move, to do something. And I'm glad to be, you know, able to report on that already. And it's a small contribution, but I see people working, taking ticket planes, landing in Egypt and starting to say, you know what, we're going to go for it. Well, that's what we want to see. And we want to see more than that. Thousands of boats, millions of people at the Rafah border. That's what I want to see.
Thank you, Freddie Ponton. And you can find Freddie's work every day. Great research, keeping our readers and listeners informed at 21st Century Wire. Freddie, our associate editor for global affairs at 21 Wire. Frank Romano, your final thoughts in the last minute before we exit the stream. Go ahead.
Right, I'm sort of speaking for myself, but I believe knowing individually each and every one of the activists on the Madleen, because we trained together, and again we got to Catania, and I was supposed to be on the boat, so I know them very well. I'm speaking on behalf of everybody, that all of us have left jobs or other opportunities, responsibilities, and our families. And I cut a film and I was working on a film about Palestinian resistance based upon my my memoir Lebanon Terror in the Middle East, and I was one of the lead actors, and it was a professional full-length action movie, and cut it as many of the activists dropped all their activities and privilege direct action. You know, film is good, and even being in front of the EC Parliament and talking about things and political things, but there's nothing that takes the place, nothing that takes the priority more than direct action, and that's exactly what the Freedom Flotilla represents for me. And putting it on the line and preparing is a lot of hard work and drudgery and trench warfare, but direct action, I think, when we, and I'm pleading to people, when you have a choice and you have an opportunity, jump on the direct action, and you know, it will be far more fulfilling, and there's a far more purpose for it as well. But we have a need for journalists and people to do whatever they can. But if you have an opportunity for direct action, I think it should take priority, and that's exactly what all these activists on the Madleen believed and carried out, and don't regret that in spite of the consequences and the challenges. And inshallah, we can get together, God willing, and bring this world and bring the capitalistic and evilness that's happening and controlling us to their knees if we take and use the journalists, and they're very well, and we need you so fundamentally, we can't do anything. So you're just as important as direct action, but you have an opportunity to direct action, take it, and I hope to see you on the next Freedom Flotilla on the way to Gaza, God willing.
Dr. Frank Romano, thank you very much. And Freddie Ponton, again, thank you. And yeah, and just a reminder, this is still alive, ladies and gentlemen. The march from Cairo to Rafah, it's still alive. There's still thousands of people there in Egypt, but there's you know, a few problems. It's the Egyptian government's panicking a little bit and don't know what to make of all this interest in direct action. As Frank was saying, it is very effective. Just the reactions from governments, the reverberations politically, you just can't even calculate the effect, especially in the long run. Gentlemen, thank you very much for this great midweek wire. I really appreciate, and Godspeed to you, Frank, in your journey that you're preparing right now. Another flotilla. We'll hopefully keep in touch with you, Frank, to get some updates as and when they're appropriate. And Freddie Ponton is doing great work on a daily basis up at 21stcenturywire.com. There's a great story about the French arms to Israel, huge scandal. We're probably going to do another maybe video report on that. Could be next week. There's momentum gathering on that. It's BDS related. Great. That's up at our website right now, 21stcenturywire.com. Thank you, Freddie, for your work researching that and for this story as well. That's all we've got time for, ladies and gentlemen. Great work by everybody. Again, I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. This has been the Midweek Wire. If you like what we do, if you want to support the type of journalism that we're doing, this program, the Sunday Wire, daily content, we really need your help now more than ever. So consider supporting us to either as a donation or subscribe and become a monthly member at 21wire.tv. It's only around $5 per month, but it makes a huge difference. Okay, so I know a lot of you follow us, you share our work, you watch us religiously, but not all of you are subscribing, so please consider supporting us. We are expanding what we're doing, and we like the output that's been coming. We've got a great team, we're building it, so we need your help to move forward. So I hope you guys consider that. And on Sundays, the Sunday Wire, that's our other main flagship show, 12 till 3 Eastern, 5 till 8 UK time. I'm your host there. You'll see some familiar faces, no doubt, on Sundays. So we had a great episode this past Sunday, so you can check out the archive for more there in terms of our content, which is also up on the audio streams as well. So anyway, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're going to be signing out now, so we appreciate you, and hopefully we'll see you this weekend. Join us for the Sunday Wire. All the best.